Hey, welcome to Barley and Hops. I'm George. We've got a great one today. We're going to do a couple of different things, so let me talk you through that real quick. We're so glad you showed up. Listen, you can always give us a call. We'd love to answer your questions, or like us on Facebook, or just get in touch with us somehow. We'll reach out to you. Here's what we're going to do today. We're going to make a wine out of a concentrate. Now, we've done this before, but this time we're going to make it with an apple kiwi strawberry. We're going to make an apple kiwi strawberry, a delicious wine for having around the house, and for those parties or those times when you just want to sit around and sip a really nice wine. Plus, we're going to make this one that's not going to be really a high alcohol content. It's going to be a little bit mild. So I'm going to show you how we do that, and I'll give you instructions on everything that we've got here in just a second. But the first thing we want to do is we're going to make an adaptation to our fast ferment. Now, I use the fast ferment almost exclusively now since we started carrying them over a year ago. I find that they're just a lot more easier to use. They really kind of make sense. They put everything into one container as opposed to having a primary and a secondary and a bottling, but where you have to transfer your wine or your beer or your mash. In this case, all you're going to do is remove the ball that was normally attached to the bottom. You remove that and dump the yeast and put it back on. But everything happens in one container, to include bottling from that container. So that's really nice. All right, here's what I've got though. We're going to put a spigot on the outside of this, and the reason I want to put the spigot on is so that later on, and I'll show you this, so that in order for us to test the gravity or like test it during its fermentation, if you want to you have to open the top, that 6-inch lid. You got to open that top, and it's pretty precarious. You're not going to hurt the wine, but it's just kind of like a pain. So we're going to put a small valve in the side of our fast ferment. You can do this relatively easy. Any of your brew shops carry these. This is a 1-inch. You just got to drill a 1-inch hole, and it has a gasket that goes inside and outside, and of course with the cap on it. Now, yes, one thing that this will do though is it will offer me a little bit more risk. So when I wash this, I'd have to take this out and make sure it's washed and cleaned as well. Because if I just leave it in there, stuff is going to start to collect in there. So yeah, it increases a little bit of the workload later on cleaning out, but if it makes life that much more easier for you, why not do it now? But then again, you don't have to. It's not a requirement. But I'm going to show you how we do this. We're going to drill a 1-inch hole right in the side of our fast ferment, and this might make you quiver because I know the fast ferment is not really a cheap item, but I'm going to go ahead and drill a 1-inch hole in the side of this, and I'm anywhere down below the 1 liter mark or the 1 gallon mark. Because I want to get into the wine itself. I don't want to be up here in the head body of it, and I don't want to be down here where all the yeast is. I want to be somewhere in that mid area where I can actually get a good reading. So we're going to put that thing right about here, and up there we go. And I'm going to drill all the way into a 1-inch hole. There we go. So there's my 1-inch hole. And here shortly, before I get to start to make the wine, what I'll do is I'll sanitize this, and that'll go right in here. And of course, I'll have that spigot set on the outside so that anytime that I want to draw off just a little bit, I can. And later on, when we test the gravity when we make this wine, we're actually going to do that. So here's the setup for our wine. Let me set this out of the way for you. We've got 12 cans of Old Orchard. Got this at, excuse me, at Walmart. And you read the label real carefully. I mean, there's plenty of these on the market. But if you read the label carefully, what you're looking for is you're looking for the ingredients, what its contents, what it's made of. And one thing I don't find on here, which is good news, is any kind of sorbate. Because sorbate will inhibit the production of what yeast do, and will inhibit a yeast colony from developing. So this is 100% juice. And it's got, as a matter of fact, it's already got 29 grams of sugar in it. And so we've got that. I've got both. I got 2 bags. I got a 6-pound and a 2-pound. So I'm going to use 8 pounds. So that's 12 cans and 8 pounds. I'm going to use corn sugar. But table sugar will work just as well. I just use corn sugar because it's readily available right here in the store. I also think that it ferments a little bit cleaner, but it's 6 1/2 dozen of the other. For your money, you're just as well off grabbing some sugar from one of your local marts. I'm going to put about a tablespoon or teaspoon and a half of acid blend in there to try to balance that out just a little bit. Then I'm also going to use, we're going to use the refractometer today, and we had a video on this before about how to read a refractometer. It only takes about 3 drops, and then you'll read it and it'll tell you what the specific gravity is. But in line with that, we're also going to use our hydrometer, so we'll be able to test that to make sure that that's working correctly. And this is our hydrometer cylinder. What's really cool about this is we're going to be able to use our new spigot on the side of our Fastferment to draw out. So no more drawing from the top, we'll just draw it right from the side and get right at it. So if you give me an opportunity here, I'm going to get set up. Oh, by the way, we're going to use the EC1118 yeast, the most common wine yeast on the market. I'm going to get set up here. I got to get this cleaned up. I'm going to sanitize the inside of this Fastferment one more time, and then we're going to come out here. We're going to put this together, and it shouldn't take us long at all. So hang in there, and I'll see you shortly. Oh yeah, we're at it already. All right, we're back, and I've got my valve in. You can see it here, and I put it just a little bit there below that ring, which means that I've actually got to take that valve out in order to get my Fastferment out of the stand, which is probably a good idea because that's going to force me to remove that when I clean. So it really kind of reinforces the cleanliness process. Now I've already started this. Let me tell you, adding the apple kiwi strawberry is such a delight. Now what I've done is I've left these set out for just a couple of hours, and they're starting to frost on the outside, which means they're not totally frozen on the inside, but they are cold. In Old Orchard, the way they make these cans is so easy to open. They just pop, the lid just pops off, and all you've got to do is, there you go, dump the contents inside. Now some of this is going to be icy, some of it's going to be liquid. Don't worry about it, and just toss the cans away. So we're going to add all 12 cans of that. Now we did the same thing when we did the cranberry wine, if you remember, and that turned out wonderful. So we're expecting this to really turn out good. But so we backed off on the sugar. Remember, the sugar, 1 pound of sugar will raise your gravity, and if you understand what I'm talking about, it's on one of our other videos. It'll raise the gravity points. 1 pound, 32 gravity points, 1 pound per gallon. So we're going to have about 6 gallons in here, and I'm going to raise my gravity points 32 by 8 divided by 6. We'll do the math here in just a few minutes, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But I'll be with you shortly. So just hang in there as I get this thing filled up, and then we'll add the water together, and then we'll do all the rest of that stuff. So don't go far. Well, as you can see, we've got all 12 in there, and I actually put in like 2 gallons of this water that I've had sitting here. Now, but before I get it all filled up, I'd like to take advantage of what's available, which is the mixing process. In the mixing process, this is really simple, really straightforward. And believe it or not, I mean, even the breaks in the video, this is only going to be about a 15-minute job. I take a couple of minutes to move back and forth, so I don't bore you with that. But here, let me show you what else we're going to do. Before we finish filling it up, now we're going to add, and I've got the ½ teaspoon. I'm going to add 1, 2, 3 ½ teaspoons, so that's a teaspoon and a half of acid blend. I'll lay that down. And of course, now I use Star Sand, and I put it in a spray bottle and spray it. Remember, if you mix up Star Sand, make sure you mix it up very carefully. It goes a long way. Plus, it's a contact sanitizer, and provided you put it in a bottle that's got a top on it, it won't go bad on you. So if you fill a bucket and you're soaking things in it, that bucket, you'll have to dump the bucket because it's not going to last you. It'll go bad on you overnight. But if you dump it into and you're using oh my goodness, a septic tank or a septic system in your home, please avoid dumping this down the drain because it will kill all that bacteria that you absolutely need in your septic system. Otherwise, you can run it right in if you're on a city sewer system. But with this, you just spray. Love it. Shake it. And it's a contact sanitizer, so it is ready to use. Now, I've already put that in, and I'm going to go ahead and just stir this up a little bit. And actually, I'm going to leave this paddle sitting right there. Now, I haven't opened the ball yet. I've left the ball closed. And the reason I left the ball closed is because at the very end, we're going to agitate this wine by opening the ball. It'll gurgle. It'll actually agitate it and force all that yeast to start to maneuver around, and then we're going to put the lid on it. That'll be the last thing we do. So, but while we're at this point, I might as well go ahead and add the sugar before I get any further. But before I add the sugar, I'd like to know what is the temperature of this. So I've got one of these small, it's like a meat thermometer, or for your stove. They're really accurate. They really work well. And of course, it's got a thermocouple. And that's the probe, a thermo probe. And we were talking about that when we were doing the video on PIDs. It works exactly the same way. It's just a smaller model. And we are at, according to my probe, we're at 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, 68 degrees Fahrenheit is the low limit of the EC1118 yeast. That's the band of excellence, I'd call it, that we have, 68 to 72 degrees. Somewhere in that neighborhood, 68 to 74, somewhere in that area. So we're going to start off there. I'd rather start off a little low and warm up into an environment than just start off hot and try to cool off. So we're going to leave it just like that. But what we are going to do is we are going to start adding our sugars. And I'll just dump this sugar in here. Now this sugar is a lot easier to use than table sugar, mind you. And if you're using table sugar, I'd recommend that you put it in a small pan and with warm water so that it gets wet and it dissolves. Because otherwise, if you put sugar into a cool water, what will happen is the crystals will just float to the bottom or sink to the bottom. You'll have crystals in the bottom. You don't want that. So, but with corn sugar is just so soluble. It automatically melts whenever it hits water. So all you gotta do is pour it in. I might as well go ahead and pour in the other 5 or 6 pounds. I've got 2 in there now, 6 more pounds. And our goal, our target, we should have taken a gravity reading before we put sugar in, but we didn't. We can figure it out. But our goal is to get to about 1.0, I don't know, 80 maybe. That would give us a good 12% wine, 12% alcohol by volume. So we've got that in there, so that's going to be a real sweet mixture. And I can see that. It's mixing up extremely well. Once we get this mixed up, I think our next step is to take our gravity reading. And we're going to do that. And as we take our gravity reading, it's going to tell us quite a few things. It's going to tell us, one, it's going to tell us how much fermentable sugars we have in here. 2, that's going to allow us to determine potentially how much alcohol we are going to produce. And 3, there you go, 3, it's going to give us a start point. So remember, always take an initial gravity reading, because if you call me and you tell me, George, I got this problem that's going on, or that's happened, or it just won't do. Usually my first question is going to be, what was your initial gravity? And if you didn't take the initial gravity, it's really hard to figure out what's going on, because your original gravity, the starting gravity, is a really, really good data point for everything else that happens in your fermenting process. But don't fear, if you don't take the gravity reading, we'll try to figure out a way to help you. We'll work through it somehow, but it's critical, but it's a lot easier if you've got initial gravity. All right. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my refractometer, and we're going to get a gravity reading. And what you do with the refractometer is just you go in and you get just a couple of drops. And you drop that on your refractometer slide, and then you close that. Then we remove the glasses, look up in the light, and we start to check it out. And my goodness, my reading is 1.110. 1.110. Well, that's a little bit higher than I had anticipated. Well, guess what? We've got more water to add. So let's do that, because right now it's really thick. So you see the importance of having the right amount of water. When I add more water, which I'm going to do in a moment, it's going to dilute that. So that initial gravity is going to come down. And again, we're still searching for that 1.080090, somewhere around that neighborhood. So bear with us for a few moments. I'll clean this off. And we're going to go at this again, but we're going to add some more water and bring it up to our 6-gallon mark. Okay, we're just about at our mark. And just like when we did the Green Apple Delight, Remember I said that I'll put just a little bit more in because I know what's going to happen when I open that ball. I'm going to sacrifice at least the first 16 ounces or so. That's going to fill the ball. And later on, when I dump that ball again, I'm going to sacrifice another portion of this wine. And that's always good. And it's for a good reason, so that I have a very clear wine at the very end that's going to be delicious. So I'm going to make sure that I've got just enough water in there to make up for that, so that at the very end, I'm going to bottle 6 gallons of wine. I'm not going to bottle 6 gallons minus the 2 balls that I dropped off. Okay, if you know what I mean. So there we are. All right, now we're here, and again we go back to, and you know, we were talking about gravity points, and again, a pound of sugar will raise the gravity 32 gravity points per gallon. And I've got, I had 8 of those. So that's 8 times 32 divided by 6 will tell us how many gravity points it's going to raise. Now here's the interesting thing, is that once we take this gravity reading, excuse me, if we subtract that from the total gravity, we'll know how much sugar Old Orchard has in its, what's that, apple, kiwi, strawberry, 100% juice. All right, here we go. So the first thing we'll do, let's figure that out. What did I say that was? That was 32 gravity points per gallon, per pound per gallon, times 8, because we had 8 pounds. And then we divide that by 6. That's right, 6, because we got 6 gallons. It's going to be 42.6 gravity points. That's what we've raised. Whatever was in here, we've raised it with that additional sugar by 42.6, almost 47 gravity points. It's amazing. Okay, here we are. Now we go right into checking our gravity. All right, we drop a couple of drops on there. I'll close the shield. Oh, you're not going to believe this. Yeah, you will. 1.092. 1.092, which is kind of what we're looking for. Now, wait a minute. So that means, if we do this again, 32 times 8 divided by 6 equals 42.6 gravity points. All right. So if we take that 42.6 gravity points, 42.6 from 192, 192 minus 42.6, it means it started off at 1.49, 1.49. 1.049 was what the original gravity would have been from just the juice itself. So the juice itself would have made a pretty good wine. In my estimation, it would have made a wine that would have been about maybe a 5 or 6%, something close to what a beer would have been. So we boosted it up a little bit. So here we are. Okay, now let's do the other one, the other way, which is one you may be more familiar with. And believe it or not, it really doesn't matter how you check this. And I'm going to reach down here and I'm going to grab off of my spigot enough of this wine. There we go. See, I've got that wine there, and I'm going to drop my hydrometer in there, and we're going to read that hydrometer. And that hydrometer tells us, oh my goodness, and you see this, 1.0, get around here, there we go, 1.092, right in that neighborhood, 1.092, which means that our potential alcohol, what we can expect from this batch of wine, is going to be about 13%, 12 or 13%. Now, and I may shorten it, I may stop it a little bit early and maintain that residual sweetness, but that's going to be totally up to you and totally up to me at this point. But you could stop it a little early. So if you wanted to stop it at 1.010 or 0.20, you could. And I'm going to catch that phone because, of course, there's probably someone who has a question or wants to place an order with us. So I'll be back with you in just a moment, and we'll add. Okay. Hey, good news. It was a telemarketer, so it didn't take a whole lot of my time. But I wouldn't mind if it was someone who called in and had a question. We'd spend the requisite amount of time necessary in order to try to answer the question. Well, here we are. We're at the point now where it's time to add our yeast. We already know what the initial gravity is. We're going to write that down, 1.092. And then we're going to add our yeast. We're going to open up the ball. And then the final thing we're going to do is we're going to cap it off, put our airlock on it, and we're going to slide this in the corner. And we're going to give it an opportunity to ferment. Now, I was talking earlier about stopping fermentation. And you can halt that a little earlier. And that's really why this pitcock on the outside, this valve, is so valuable now, is because you can go by there and you can check it. You can just take a real small amount and taste it. And when it has the flavor that you're looking for, plus the residual sugars that you think are right, you no longer have to go inside and pull that out to test it. You can do that from the side. And once it's there, and whether that is 1.010, 1.020, whatever that is, and it matches your palate, you can, at that time, put your sorbate, potassium sorbate, and then you'll notice that your fermentation will cease almost automatically as it cocoons all of those yeasts. And then you're just about ready to bottle it. You just clarify and then bottle. So you don't have to do that all right away. You can go ahead and put your sorbate in there, put your clarifier in there, and let that thing settle, and then you can bottle the next day. Well, you're going to have to wait at least a day or two. Super Clear is a real good product. Keosol and Chitosan comes together, 2 small packs, and that will really help it clear out really, really well. This will be an easy one to clear because there's not a whole lot of meat, I'd say, inside there, because we didn't use a fresh fruit, we used a concentrate. So it should clarify very, very quickly and very, very easily. Now, for those of you who are looking for the absolute highest potential alcohol in here in a drier wine, well, just allow that to ferment all the way down below 1.000, which is the data point. Your data point, 1.000, is actually the point at which your hydrometer floats if it was in water. And so alcohol being lighter than water, if this floats below the point of water, you know that there's more alcohol than there is water per se. So it's going to be a lot drier and a lot stronger. You can also, if you're looking for the higher alcohol wine that is still sweet, then you can allow it to go ahead and ferment all the way down below 1.000, add your sorbate, and then mix up a sugar slurry, a half a cup of sugar and about a cup of water, and mix that, and then start to introduce that little by little until you get the right taste that you're looking for. And that will back sweeten. That's what we call back sweeten. Or you can use glycerin. Glycerin really works well as well. So those are your 3 options about fermentation. You can stop early. You can let it go all the way and have a nice dry wine. Or you can let it go all the way, have a dry wine, and back sweeten it. So maybe on the next video, we'll get a press in here, and we'll go down and we'll grab like 18 or 22 pounds of strawberries or grapes. I mean, just something that we can experiment with and play with and demonstrate how relatively easy it is to do this at home. So we wish you the best of luck in your brewing pleasures. Remember, do not ever take cooking advice from a skinny man. And as I always say, it's a good idea to never take a sleeping pill and a laxative at the same time. I'm going to add this yeast. And once I finish doing that, I'm going to open up the ball on the bottom, and you'll hear it gurgle. That's going to absolutely move that yeast all over the place. And then we're going to add our lid that was already pre-sanitized and sitting there waiting on us. Look, if you have any questions, give us a call. In 2 weeks, it'll be just about time for you to start clarifying. So you guys have a great day.